Okay, welcome everybody to this Employer of Choice session. Now, this one is on the topic of women's health and wellbeing in the workplace. So I'm really excited to kind of bring this session to you today, obviously being a young woman in the workplace. I'm really looking forward to kind of the discussion between our industry experts, Maria Herber Moyano from Charles River, along with her colleague, Nicola Port, who is their HR officer. And also Joseph Gray, who's going to be representing Bloody Good Period. So, just a couple of housekeeping points before we begin. If you don't mind just keeping your microphones on mute, that would be great. We are also recording this session, and throughout, if you would like to ask any questions, please just feel free to pop them in the chat box. So, with that, I will hand you over to Maria and you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Jess. So very happy to be here. I'm Maria Herba. I work in Charles River in Chesterford Park. So Charles River is a contract research organization. For those of one who might not know about it, we do drug development research for clients. My role in there is I'm a group leader. So I have a group of people I manage, and I also work on different scientific projects. And I'm very interested myself in gender equality. I'm a woman. I've had my daughter while I was at work. I manage a group of women and men, but some of the women have kids while they were working with me. So I'm actually quite passionate about developing these women and making sure that they have the opportunities that they deserve, and that the maternity leave is talked about, the periods are talked about, menopause, that all women-specific needs are covered. So very happy to be here today.
Wonderful, thanks Maria. And Nicola?
So my name's Nikki Paul. I'm the one of the HR officers at Charles River alongside Maria, and I specifically cover the biology department, and so we work together. So from an HR perspective, we encompass and we encounter many personal problems as well as professional, as you can imagine. So this is something that I'm very mindful of. Clearly, I'm a woman as well, and I have 3 grown-up children. I actually have 3 grown-up sons. And I think the interesting thing is how they deal with these kind of conversations as much as anybody else. So it's it's of interest for me today. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks very much, Jazz, and great to be here this morning. Really, really grateful for the invitation and for the opportunity to tell you a bit about the work that we're developing at Bloody Good Period. I've been working with the charity for a couple of years now in the development of an initiative called Bloody Good Employers. And the initiative exists for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it is to support individuals experiencing menstruation at work. So it gives employers the tools required to better support individuals experiencing menstruation at work. And secondly, and really, really importantly, it exists to raise money to sustain and grow the core mission of Bloody Good Period as a charity. So there's a socially entrepreneurial sort of model at play here. And so I've got a bit of a presentation to run through which kind of frames the work, I guess. And it's really a lot of the presentation has really fallen out of a piece of research, or 2 pieces of research that we ran throughout 2020. We've all had a pretty peculiar 15 months or so, and that's no different for Bloody Good Period. We took the opportunity last year to kind of do a couple of deep dive bits of research as the world kind of ground to a bit of a halt on a number of fronts. So we took that moment to do some research to really dig further into the need for this work, so that we could better understand the direction of travel for Bloody Good Employers as a piece of work, and kind of hopefully position ourselves as kind of thought leaders. We got to now, when we're really shaping the work up and really designing the work, we've got that kind of up to the minute evidence, and up to the minute kind of anecdotal, qualitative and quantitative data to really kind of back up our approach. So that's kind of the framing of the presentation, and I'll share my screen now, so you've got some nice designed up bits and bobs to have a look at. So hopefully this might just take a minute for it to give me the chance to put it into full screen. So if you just bear with me. There we go. How are we looking? You all good? Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, what I really want to sort of run through in terms of the presentation today is to give you a bit of an idea of like why this piece of work feels pertinent right now. And it feels pertinent right now because of the fact that we ran this research on a couple of fronts last year. Really looking forward to sharing what we found, but probably more so looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it and hearing how this kind of lands with you as an individual employer, or actually, you know, as an individual, because it's those conversations which we're finding most valuable now, as we really sort of get to the business end of shaping up this piece of work. So yeah, really looking forward to having a chat with you afterwards. Okay, so we're going to launch this initiative later this year, and it really lands and really exists on three key points that we want to help employers do more on when it comes to supporting individuals experiencing menstruation at work. That's culture, communication, and policy. So we're really looking to support employers in shaping up more inclusive cultures at work, through more proactive leadership, clearer communication, and ultimately we're looking to bake those two things in to policy. And the initiative will provide the support, the guidance, and the steps required in order to improve on those three key points. As I mentioned earlier on, this trading model will be fundamentally will help sustain the core work of Bloody Good Period, and it's worth just letting you know what that is, so you know where this work comes from. So Bloody Good Period was founded 4.5-5 years ago by Gabby Edlin, and the reason she founded the charity was because she was volunteering at a local food bank. She realised that there was no provision of period products through the food bank, and this seemed like a massive gap to Gabby, so she put a call out just to friends and family on her social channels, and was absolutely inundated with period products, to the point where she actually quite quickly needed to get like a self-storage unit just to sort of hold the products. And she realized that there was something in this quite quickly. And so Bloody Good Period was born, and the core mission continues to be to work on two fronts. So it's the provision of products to those who need them. It started out in support of asylum seekers and refugees, but that now includes anyone experiencing poverty here in the UK. So product provision and provision of education services as well. And that education is based around the products that are available to individuals, new products that are available that they might not be aware of, and also sort of wider gynecological health provision in a given region. So we've got product provision and education. Also huge campaigning mechanics within BGP, which are ongoing. The best way of sort of dialing into that would be this week. We've of course got Menstrual Hygiene Day on the horizon this Friday, and BGP has some incredible activity, from book clubs to panel events, and a fantastic what's it called when you bid for stuff? It's an auction, an amazing auction of some really unique glampons, they're called. So like glittery tampons on plinths. You've got to see it to believe it. I strongly recommend you go and have a look, and you'll get a really fantastic idea of what BGP is all about. Really wanted to make that clear though, this is a socially entrepreneurial model. The money we raise from Bloody Good Employers goes back into Bloody Good Period. So we did some pretty deep theory of change work at the beginning of 2020, like what are we looking to do here? What are we looking to achieve through this as a piece of work? And we did that on a number of fronts for employees, for society, and of course for employers. For the purposes of today, I put a few of the short, medium and long-term outcomes for employers, for you guys hopefully, way to get involved with Bloody Good Employers. So we're talking about happier workforce. We're talking about employers getting to demonstrate practical and thought leadership by leaning into this work and getting involved, and some positive PR for that leadership too. In the medium term, we see a really positive internal culture shift coming through this work. Crucially, sort of increased retention of staff. We all know the cost that comes with having to replace staff and having to recruit generally. If we're able to recruit staff and retain staff through initiatives such as this, then that's there's clearly a benefit there and a business case for this as a piece of work. We're talking managers with greater empathy through this piece of work and being able to demonstrate that through a proactivity of getting involved with Bloody Good Employers as a piece of work, and ultimately higher productivity from individuals. And then longer term, better performance, a reduced gender pay gap, and more inclusive workplaces. So that just gives you a bit of a snapshot of what we think we're going to be achieving through Bloody Good Employers. Just to give you an idea of what we're looking for at the moment. So employer engagement is an absolutely massive piece of this work. I lead on that at the moment, but we're really looking to sort of build a team around that. So if you know of anybody who would love to get involved with a piece of work which has menstrual equity at its very heart, please do send them my way. And some front and back end development is also what we're looking for in a pro bono capacity at the moment, to make this initiative really, I guess, really sort of sit alongside some of the wonderful design work you can see in front of us. We've got an excellent designer, and we want to really map that onto the web present for Bloody Good Employers. Okay, so our report in full is available online, and I'd love for you to read it. What we've really done for the purposes of today is kind of boiled that down to give you a bit of an idea of how it came about. So we had a public-facing survey called Have Your Bloody Say that ran throughout 2020, and that was we were blessed to get sort of north of 3,000 respondents for that as a piece of work, completely organically put out by our team and by our partners. And then an employer-facing project, which was led by master's student Claire Hutchison from Birkbeck University. So we really wanted, and that was very much focused on the employer. So the idea being that we had plenty of worker voice, employee voice in this as a piece of work, and helping us shape and continue to sort of scrutinise how Bloody Good Employers develops, but also the employer voice as well. So how are employers currently approaching menstruation at work? And through those two approaches, we think we've got a really good, a nicely balanced piece of work developing. Yeah, just a bit more detail on that. From a manager's point of view, it was really a qualitative exploration of managers' perceptions of menstrual health issues at work, and how they approach that as managers. So as individuals who are responsible for people's time and ultimately people's delivery, how do people currently approach that? And we spoke to individuals from renewable energy, from healthcare, and from finance. And then, as I mentioned, the Have Your Bloody Say survey was an opportunity for the individual to really share their experience anonymously as to how they're currently supported, or perhaps, not so much. And we'll come on to that in a moment. We wanted to just make clear the limitations of of this as a piece of work. Respondents were 72% white British, and they're 50% from London and the Southeast, and that is that's reflected in our readership. I guess I could call it online. You know, generally we're quite sort of heavily weighted to the Southeast and in the UK, and that's something that we're really looking to sort of balance out with more activity happening outside of London, and trying to really build the network out across the UK. So the four key themes then that came out of this as a piece of work, I wanted to just run through them and share a couple of stats. The first one is stigma, of course. So a quarter of respondents just never talk openly about periods at work. And when asked what their employers could do to sort of better support them, nearly 2/3 of respondents said just to normalise the conversation around periods in the workplace would be a huge step for their employer to take. Non-disclosure was one of the, you know, really kind of as part of that sort of stigma continuum, I guess. It really follows on from stigma. The sort of theme of non-disclosure was really common in our surveys and in our conversations with managers as well. So 1/3 of individuals who responded feel it's more professional not to mention menstrual health to their employer. So the idea that it's unprofessional to do so, just, you know, it's quite shocking actually. And over a quarter reported never feeling supported at work when it comes to their periods. And the youngest respondents feel the least supported by their employers when we really sort of dug down into the age brackets of respondents, which really shines a light, of course, on those of the age of menstruation, like why this work is so important, because it's those individuals that feel the least supported. Just a lack of knowledge, really sort of a lack of knowledge and understanding, and therefore compassion really sort of came through in the work. So when asked about what their employers could do to support, nearly 60% said just provide more information to all employees, and that was seen as a huge step to take in terms of like really sort of improving the context at work for those experiencing menstruation. And then 4% of respondents said they just never have free access to toilets and breaks, which if you just sit with that out of 3,000 respondents, 4% is not insignificant. And over 11% said they do only sometimes. So that's sort of north of 300 respondents only sometimes have free access to toilets and breaks. And the final theme, really, which was kind of underpinned so much of what we got back as part of this piece of work, was around mental health. We've got nearly 90% have experienced anxiety or stress in the workplace due to their period. And again, when asked what their employers could do to better support them, 56% said to encourage and support time off for necessary health checks like cervical smears, etc. So there's just gives you some idea of some of the bits that really sort of jumped out at us from this as a piece of work. I just wanted to share with you our conclusions, which really have directly been fed into the Bloody Good Employers and the development of the initiative, which is in its closing stages now. So proactive leadership and forward-thinking policy feels to be two of the absolute pillars for this as a piece of work. We need proactive buy-in at a senior level. That's absolutely essential. Sort of informal and awkward conversations behind closed doors feel really archaic, and we need to move those along. And changing this conversation ultimately needs commitment from employers written into policy. And then the leaders that are driving that forward and the policies that they're putting their names to need to be centred and celebrated. And we really look forward to sort of supporting the employers that we work with on doing those things, centering and celebrating. An active encouragement of rapport feels like a really important move for employers. A lack of rapport feels somewhat prevalent across the research. which obviously drives forward that anxiety and that sort of a feeling of a lack of support. Bloody Good Employers will provide the templates for a significantly more human-centered approach at all levels, and a proactive understanding of the needs of the individual is, of course, completely pivotal here. So giving voice to the individual to share those needs is really important. And an open discussion and tools for facilitating that open discussion will be absolutely central to Bloody Good Employers. And a really important piece of this puzzle is moving the onus from the individual onto the organisation, the institution, the business, the company, whoever that employer is. It's really sharing the responsibility of creating the space for this conversation feels really important. So the onus is not on the individual. So flexibility, productivity, and the business case here. There's a huge opportunity in 2021 to reshape our workplaces as we begin to sort of feel our way back into being in them, you know. And those of us who have been privileged enough to work from home for the last 15 months, as we begin to sort of work our way back into workplaces, what do they look like? What do they feel like? How can we reshape them and use our return to them as an opportunity to do that? I think that's a really exciting opportunity. Let's formalise the flexibility that COVID's driven into so many of our working lives. If not now, when? There's a real moment here that we can take advantage of. And understand the implications of COVID on the world of work. This is an ongoing conversation that Bloody Good Employers is continuing to, is going to really continue to sort of push forward. What does COVID mean for the worlds of work? And I really look forward to hearing some of your thoughts on that as well as we move into the conversation sort of side of this morning's engagement. Our next steps are to identify that pro bono partner for some front and back end development for this piece of work, and we're really confident that we'll get someone fantastic on board for that. But more excitingly is to partner up with employers for launch. We're going to be launching in the coming months, coming 2 or 3 months, dependent on when we get these partnerships in place. But we're pretty much there on the design of this as a piece of work. So we're really excited to know now who would be up for leaning in and launching it with us as partners and making a bit of a splash, hopefully. So yeah, there's an email address there for anyone who'd like to hear more. I'll stop there now and stop sharing my screen, and really look forward to opening up a conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joe. If anyone has got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat box. I'm happy to kind of dig those out. It would be kind of interesting to hear maybe Nikki and Maria, after hearing that, what you guys maybe do at Charles River at the moment that maybe, I don't know, what kind of policies that you have that is similar to those?
So from a policy perspective, not a lot, I'll be honest with you. We do have a very generous maternity policy. So we do look after our pregnant ladies. And to me, that's very important. We need to encourage ladies to be able to, you know, they say you can't have it all, but we try and support women in being able to have as much as they can, so they can have a family life and a professional one too. In terms of any policies that go beyond that, we don't really have any. You know, I'd be interested to hear, you know, if anybody on the call today has policies at their own sort of companies and what they encompass.
The one thing that I will add to what Nikki mentioned is that generally, I think that it's quite an open discussion type of culture in Charles River, and then there's kind of little details that show some of that, you know, support to periods in there. So, for example, I think it was during last year in the toilets, suddenly menstrual period products appear in there. So that is something that we have always, every woman has a struggle with, oh, I don't have what I need right now. And just being able to have that peace of mind of actually knowing that there's going to be some available in there if you need them. I think it's kind of those little steps that make an environment friendly for periods.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's difficult. I've not been on site, but I know that they are. But when I have been, yes, you're absolutely right. They are there. And the other thing is that we have access where we work to very clean toilets. We don't, we have ready access. I am aware from what you said, Joe, that some people don't have, that they might not be able to have the breaks or when they need them and things like that. We're in a fortunate position, especially doing the nature of the roles that we do, that people can have access to that as and when they need to.
Be interesting to hear what the breakdown men versus women in terms of numbers is at your company.
Oh yeah, I probably should have come to that. I come to today's meeting with those figures. If you give me a few moments, I might be able to have a look. But
I think that I have some kind of broad figures in my mind from a previous presentation I did. It was about a year ago. So I think we are biased towards female, and so maybe we are probably in like 55 to 45% towards female, and also that stands also in the higher level. So at senior level, the director of the site is a woman, the head of human resources is a woman. So we do have actually that woman representation in the high roles, in the role models roles, that actually I think makes a difference in terms of working towards that gender equality and having that, the open space for having conversations about this.
And Nicola, it'd be amazing. I know you've got to go at 10:30, so I wanted to ask a question. It'd be amazing to hear a bit more about that maternity policy and just what that kind of looks like, and how you came to develop it.
So I'll be honest with you. When I joined the company almost exactly 4 years ago, they had a generous maternity policy, and it hasn't really changed. So I think from a statutory perspective, the entitlement would be, I think it's 90% of your salary for the first 6 weeks, and then after that, I think it's statutory maternity pay. From Charles River's perspective, we pay the first 6 weeks at 100% pay, and then the next 8 weeks at 50% pay. So it's considerably better than statutory maternity policy, but also women who join our company are instantly, there's no trial period, there's no, that you have to work for the company for a set amount of time before you can be afforded these extra options. So this is something that, from the day you start at Charles River, you're given those benefits. I mean, that does also work for paternity. Our male counterparts, as soon as they join the company, that they're entitled to these. And obviously, we have shared parental leave, so it's not just maternity, and they're the same benefits as the maternity leave would be. So yeah, it's much more favourable than statutory leave. And we're also, we are very supportive of our female colleagues. Many of them at the end of their maternity leave choose to come back on a flexible working arrangement, on reduced hours or something. And we're very open to that. We're very open to flexibility in the workplace, especially in terms of since the COVID situation. So we're very fortunate, but we are very open to flexibility, and that obviously works for men as well as women, but that in this case it works very well for our ladies who have got family commitments as well. I am sorry, I am going to have to leave. I do apologise because I had a pre-arranged meeting, but it's great to meet you all, and I'll catch up with Maria later on to see if there's, you know, anything that comes out of it that I can help with. But thank you for the session, much appreciated.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat box. If we come to David's first, so what are the first steps an employer should be consider undertaking to address the concerns raised in the survey? Joe, I don't know if you want to put this one up first.
Yeah, like really good question. How do we do something about, you know, what we've learned? And I think the abiding theme in both bits of research is stigma, and so this is about starting a conversation, and having spoken to a lot of employers, we know that it can be quite challenging to get that conversation moving, and that's kind of where Bloody Good Employers came from as an initiative, because fundamentally it's about demanding of employers that they make some space to start a conversation. And I think even if we were to, David, catch up after this and I ran you through, you know, what it actually sort of, what the Bloody Good Employers Initiative looks like, even just sort of absorbing that and hearing that would be the beginnings of those conversations, I think. I think speaking as a man on this as well, and someone who really sort of learns a heck of a lot about menstruation in any given conversation that I have on this topic, like, it really is about kind of building some momentum on conversation as well. So actually just making sure that these conversations don't happen in isolation. You've got individuals from across hierarchy involved in some way in the conversation, and really sort of committing to doing the work. I think it is madness that so much stigma still attached to menstruation at work, or menstruation full stop, if we consider how many individuals are affected by menstruation. So we need to fundamentally normalize periods, and that's what BGP is all about, and that's BGE lives by the same mantra. Yeah.
So if I might interrupt you there, Joe, have you considered, or are you actually maybe even doing educational talks within the companies? Because I think it's fine for people from various companies coming to this type of webinars, but then it's difficult to bring it kind of back and start those conversations. So do I just kind of engage with my male colleagues in the corridors? How does that happen? So I think that actually for you to kind of coming into the companies and giving the opportunity for males and females to attend and have these discussions could be actually a very good trigger for that conversation and that momentum to be built.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Bloody Good Employers as an initiative is a self-evaluation tool and 3 workshops, and then a re-evaluation tool. So over a 12-month period, an employer has a number of touch points with this as a piece of work. One of the workshops is for all employees. The self-evaluation tool is for sort of people with key HR responsibilities, but there is a survey for a percentage of all employees to make sure that we're getting a real sense of where an employer is currently at. And all this detail I can, of course, I can share. I'll share with Jazz to be circulated. We have this kind of shaped up on a one-pager so that employers get a really good sense of what this engagement looks like. But yeah, self-evaluation, where are you currently at in terms of your support for individuals experiencing menstruation? 3 workshops that really look at culture, communication and policy. So those 3 workshops happen, we think, over the course of a 12-month period. So, you know, one every 3.5 months, let's say. And then a reevaluation tool to assess where you've got to over the course of that 12 months, and then hopefully to qualify you as a bloody good employer. And that's what the exchange is. This isn't like a kind of a rubber stamping exercise where, you know, you pay your money and you get a logo and you put it at the bottom of your website. This is proper work, and this falls out of the genuinely activist sensibility of bloody good period. So we're demanding that employers do some work, you know, and take some responsibility and lead proactively on what fundamentally feels less and less stigmatized the more I talk about it. I hope people share that sentiment on the call today, like, and feel like it's healthy to talk about this. We have a real problem with the fact that Friday's celebration is called Menstrual Hygiene Day, because it suggests that there's something unhygienic about periods somehow, which of course is complete nonsense. So there's a lot of work to do, and that's why communications and culture are two of the absolute pillars, because words matter, and like the way we frame these conversations really, really matter. And to David's point, you know, his second question, where you have more male-dominated environments, how do you open up the discussion? You just do, and it's not going to be very straightforward at the start, because we will use the wrong language, and we will get things wrong. And by we, I mean everybody. I don't just mean men by any stretch. So that's where we're committed to getting the conversation going and continuing the hard work to get the conversations right, rather than not having the conversations at all because of the stigma that surrounds periods, and therefore just not doing the work at all. Yeah, it really sort of shone through from our research last year that a lot of people feel profoundly unsupported, and that's tonic enough to really drive forward on the work and get it launched this year. I'm just having a look at some of the other questions. So yeah, that's a really excellent question, and one that we approach with real sort of like real consideration and great sensitivity when it comes to the core work of BGP, because new arrivals in the UK, asylum seekers and refugees often come from communities where they're less confident talking about periods, and also may well have experienced significant trauma en route to the UK. So we work with medical practitioners and sort of translators and organisations on the ground in given regions to really sort of sensitively get that connection right and get that exchange right with individuals who for whom periods are way more taboo. In employer sort of contexts, we're really hopeful that employers will be warmed up to the fact that this actually falls within. This is a piece of wellbeing work, you know, which really allows employers to walk the walk from a wellbeing point of view, and we really need to see the sort of intersectional nature of how wellbeing relates to equality, diversity, and inclusion. And this is, you know, there's a lot of extremely hard work to do on the HR front, but I think our exchanges with the individual employer with this particular piece of work in mind, and it's for the employer to really show up on behalf of their employees, regardless of their where their employee might, you know, sort of their employee's ethnicity, I suppose, or their community's approach or attitude to periods.
Yeah, so also talking about the question that is in there about the period leave and that support from employers on people when they are kind of struggling through their periods and so on. I think it's actually a fantastic question. We do have, for example, in our sick absence leave kind of drop down menus when you are actually talking about what it is that, what's the reason that you couldn't come to work today, that you're feeling bad. We do actually have gynecological problems and periods in there as one of the reasons. So it is something that people should be encouraged to actually use when they are having that horrible period and those cramps and they can't actually come to work. They should be, they have that option of actually saying, well, that is the reason. I'm gonna openly talk about it and I'm gonna choose that as the reason. As you said in the survey, many still might choose not to do that and probably just use a cold or any other issue, just not to talk about that. But I think that normalizing and using that option to actually say, yes, I'm not at work because I'm feeling horrible because of my period, and saying it so that we can actually have, numbers on how many women at work are, struggling, so that we can actually use those numbers to make a case for a stronger action and maybe a period leave policy. I think that the first thing that we need is the openness and the numbers to be able to use them positively.
Yeah, I really agree. That openness is fundamental to moving stigma along. From a BGE point of view and a BGP point of view, we stop short of the need for period leave, because actually the policies that already exist around sickness, if you're unable to work because of the impact of your period, then this falls under sick leave. This falls under statutory sick leave, and so we don't see the need to build in a separate policy dedicated to periods. We feel like that actually might go some way to continuing to sort of other the period, when actually we're looking to normalize it. So we're really looking to just better exercise existing policies, and that's what a lot of we're looking to add to those policies with more openness, exactly as Maria suggested, and with sort of additional clauses that really sort of open that conversation up. But what this doesn't demand is a massive revolution when it comes to policy. So we don't, whilst it's up to the individual employer, we would suggest that a separate period policy, a separate period leave policy isn't actually the answer to this. It's about greater sort of understanding and appreciation of existing policy, building confidence in employees to sort of be open about why they need to exercise certain policies and why they need to access certain policies, specifically sickness leave, and then some additional clauses of policy which really sort of show an employer's openness and proactive leadership on support around menstruation. And just to follow up as well, again, Sarai, on taboo and on BGP's wider kind of approach to this. This is something we're hugely exercised by, and I'd really urge to have a look at our No Shame Here campaign, which is just sort of really sort of gathering pace this week, with Menstrual Hygiene Day in mind. So that would be a really loads of resources there to kind of support conversation where perhaps it's less comfortable and less prevalent. Just sort of looking through here. Thank you for all the questions, by the way. It's great to see such activity, just having a read.
So there is a question about, first a comment from Claire to say that they are a small company, but that has a very good maternity leave. So then why bigger, stronger, economically probably companies don't offer those ones in terms of maternity and paternity leave? So that's probably not for me to answer, in the sense that as my colleague Nikki already said, our maternity leave is actually quite generous also, but I think that there's still the stigma also, or the issue of if you get a pregnant woman, then that's going to mean less delivery. you know, they're going to be out for a period of time. You might want to recruit, or you might want to divide the workload in between other colleagues that might bring down the productivity. I think that mindset is still very much in some industries, and that's what has to be changed. And helping out our women in the workplace through their maternity or paternity leaves, it's actually crucial, making sure that if they are due for a promotion, they don't lose on that chance just because they go on maternity leave, that they are given chances of coming back flexibly. So I think that all those things have to change, and the fact that some companies aren't still doing it is what we should be trying to fight.
I think, yeah, just to kind of echo Mariu's point there, we're currently working, BGP is tiny and we don't have all the answers, so we really rely on the power of partnership to kind of to develop work and to sort of secure and firm up our own approaches to certain pieces of our own HR sort of approach. And on that front, we're working extensively with Pregnant Then Screwed at the moment, the organisation who have really come to prevalence over the course of the last year or so, although they've been around for a lot longer. But the reason they've come, you know, to prominence over the course of the last year is because some absolutely shocking, you know, sort of treatment of individuals who have fallen pregnant during COVID has really sort of come to pass and has sort of come to light through the organisation. And I'm sure, you know, again, I'm no expert, and I'm sure this is not necessarily new. The shocking behaviour of those larger companies that you mentioned, Claire, really sort of just leaving people out to dry, you know, when they fall pregnant. I would really, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a fantastically supportive approach to maternity and paternity, and we as a small organisation, less than 10 people again, are looking to develop something similar, and we're developing that with an organisation who has the expertise and has the real kind of, is on the legal pulse when it comes to maternity and paternity. And I just jumping down to the latest question that came in around the menopause, we're finding increasingly that the menopause is getting way more proactively kind of addressed by employers, and we're in touch with a couple of NHS trusts who we're hoping to partner with on the launch for Bloody Good Employers, sorry, who are already really sort of well positioned policies on that front. Having had quite open conversations with them, like the reason for that is often pretty fundamental and pretty economical. Those experiencing the menopause have a level of seniority that makes them significantly more value to the employer, and this is why, you know, we're really concerned with periods fundamentally. First and foremost, that's what Bloody Good Period is all about, and so we're focused in our area. But secondly, it's where the least work has been done by some distance. It's where the least conversation happens by some distance, and it leaves the most individuals who are least experienced and therefore least confident feeling the least supported. And so we feel like it's the most urgent need in the employer space. But, you know, would love to kind of direct you to Pregnant and Screwed in particular for some really kind of upfront advice on what employers should be doing when it comes to maternity and paternity. And from a menopause point of view, we'll be sharing as part of the Bloody Good Employers initiative some sort of kind of best in class examples, of employers who are doing really forward thinking, dynamic things when it comes to policy around the menopause.
Yeah, if I can add also on the menopause question, I think that another of the things, so one of the things that we are doing in Charles River is that we also have a quite strong mental health support structure. So I think that many of the changes that will happen through menopause will not be just physical, it will be mental. So the anxiety, the changes that go through a woman on that period can cause a lot of issues. And although we don't have a particular and a specific menopause kind of program, all the support in terms of that anxiety and uncertainty during those periods is something that we do provide through those other mental health structure supports.
And I think like across all of the, these areas, so maternity, paternity, menstruation, menopause, anxiety is something clearly like a common theme here, and the well-being of one another should not be. It's difficult to think of a period in our working lives when it can come more into focus than it is now. This is about compassion, really, and we're going to bang that drum pretty loud because it makes a lot of sense to us, and I sort of hope increasingly it begins to make sense to leaders, across the employer landscape. I mean, speaking to the One Nucleus team, that when we were kind of initially sort of talking about doing this session and more widely just about the state of play at the moment, I got a really fantastic sense about how that organisation is led and about how things are considered and how compassion is at the very sort of heart of that. And that was kind of a real moment of reassurance for like coming into this space and sharing our work with confidence, because it felt like a good space to be doing it in. And no doubt the network, the One Nucleus network, really benefits from the way that network is led. And I hope that there's a sort of circuitry at play there, and we can catch up about this work outside of this context, and I can tell you a bit more about it. I think there's the question around sharing medical info. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and I'm not sure I have the answer to that question. It'd be interesting to hear Mariu, like Charlotte's asked about the drawback of telling your boss, your manager, something that's essentially medical information.
Yeah, I think that for that I would actually need my colleague Nikki from Human Resources. What I would say is that, for example, so I've had open conversations with people in my team about periods, and they've just been, open to discuss those things with me without any fear of kind of sharing any medical issues. But that's, I think, something that cannot be asked. It's something that an employee might, decide to share, but it would never be something that a company would request. So it comes again to that trust and that confidence that you build with your teams or with the higher people, your employers and so on, to be able to discuss things openly.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and it comes back to some proactive leadership and setting context appropriately that sort of doesn't put pressure on that individual, but that makes the space for the individual to share as and when they need to. Also, I think a really important point, and I've got there now, Charlotte, thank you for your question, is that what we're not saying is that everybody, you need to talk about your period, because that is not what this piece of work is about at all. It's about setting some context and setting aside some space, if it's required, for those conversations to happen. We think they're really healthy conversations to have, but we're not in any way demanding that everybody proactively has those conversations. I think that's a really important and perhaps slightly nuanced point here, me having like beat the drum a little bit over the course of the last 56 minutes saying, let's talk about periods. What this isn't is a demand that everybody does that. What it is that leadership fundamentally says, look, if you need to talk about this, and if you would like to talk about this, we're making space for it. And from now, with the help of bloody good employers, we're becoming significantly more supportive in this space.
There was also another question about workspaces and quiet spaces rather than open plan offices. I think that also comes normally. So what we try to accommodate things, and that has been quite evident during the COVID time. So there's been people that were more comfortable staying in open offices, socially separated, and others were a little bit more anxious about that and sharing kind of an open office space, and they have been accommodated into smaller offices. So I think that, again, that calls for the same type of conversation with managers and with other people in the organization. If you feel that something you would benefit from being in a closer, smaller space, that should be accommodated, not just for periods, for menopause, but also for anything that might make you anxious.
Yeah, I think a part of the bloody good employers, kind of additional resources to the workshops is ideas around how the workplace should be, and that product provision is the absolute tip of the iceberg. It's protecting some space for individuals who need a bit of space, a bit of time, and all very much sort of like in our thinking around how the workplace should look moving forward. So yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I missed that question, Alicia, I think it was. Thanks for that. I'm aware of time, so we might be about to say bye. Jazz, thanks for letting us just rabbit along. And
That's all right. No, thank you so much for your presentation and for speaking about your work, and Maria for speaking about your experiences at Charles River. I hope everybody that attended today found it a valuable experience, and thank you for coming along and asking your questions. I've thoroughly enjoyed the session, so I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Great to be on the call, and hopefully speak soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a very enjoyable session.
Been really good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.